Yo, what is going on, everybody? Happy Monday, happy 1st of July. It is a beautiful day, and we are going to get into some streaming. I'm wondering why my screen looks so dark here. What did I do? I wonder if do I have a filter on? Oh, I think I do. There we go. That should fix that. Yeah, so today is exciting day. We are jumping back into game development. I have a few very cool things to show off today. What's up, Memo? What's going on, man? I have some stuff to show you today. It's pretty exciting. I figured out what was wrong with the save system, or at least mostly figured it out. I'll run you through it in a second. I also did some work on the project over the weekend to add in a few niceties that I didn't really have time to stream because I would sit down, I would get some work done, and then I had to go do stuff, and then I would come and sit down again. So I didn't want to be like jumping around, so I just chose not to stream. And I meant to stream Dark Souls the other night, but I totally passed out on the couch, and I didn't wake up till like 3 or 4 a.m. or something like that. This is like last Friday, I think it was. And man, at 4 a.m. I was like, well, it's kind of not any point in streaming now because it's little late, a little early. I don't know, however you want to look at it. But yeah, let's get into it. I got some cool stuff to show off today. Let's see. Let me jump over to the desktop here. Let me get everything open. But I mostly figured out what's going wrong with the save system. I am an idiot, and I didn't realize some of the things I was doing. Part of the problem was, so there was 2 issues. We're still having the issue with the encryption and decryption. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then the other issue was that the hash verification was not working. It was not matching. And that I got figured out. The biggest problem was that when I would take the contents of a save file on disk and deserialize it into a save file in the game, I didn't have a constructor with no parameters, a parameterless constructor. So when Newtonsoft would deserialize it, it was actually creating a new save file with like a new created date and time and stuff like that, and then filling in certain pieces of it. So when I went to rehash it, the created date and time was now the new time for like it had just been created, even though this is like a save file from a few days ago maybe. And so when it rehashed, of course the hash isn't going to match because it's been changed. So I actually updated the save file class here, and it no longer has a constructor at all. And then in my save file factory, instead of like passing in the ID, I just create a new empty save file, and then I kind of initialize everything here. So part of the problem was I had like this code, like generating a GUID and getting the date time for the created date time, or the current date time, I should say. All of this was in the constructor for the save file. So every time JSON would deserialize it, it would recreate those values and then not match what was actually on disk. Super stupid problem. But figured it out, and it seems to be working now. And then part of the other issue was I had all of these set to like internal, because I only wanted to be able to change these from within this save project. And let me undo that. Setting them to internal was part of what was causing the hash to come in empty. Which is weird because other values and other variables were deserializing properly. Except for like the created date time and stuff like that. That was like being created new. Anyways, we have most of that figured out now, I believe. Anyways, so we're going to be testing that right now. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it was super strange. Like I'm not exactly sure why that fixed it, but it did. So awesome. Hash verification and compression are confirmed working now in any project. I'm still having a weird issue with the encryption though, where when it tries to decrypt the contents of a file, it gives me back an empty string. And that's still working in the Dark Matter Studios Unity project, but then it's not working in the Midnight Sun project. So that's still kind of complicated, but the fact that I have the hash verification working now means even if you can change the file, it will not rehash the same. The hashes won't match. So you can't make modifications to your save file anyways, or it will break the save file. So it doesn't technically need to be encrypted. That's just kind of for extra purposes if I use the save system in some other project that has sensitive data, where maybe I need to save your credentials or something like that. That way your credentials aren't saved to disk in a readable format. But we can figure out the encryption later. Actually, let me get Midnight Sun open. Sorry, that's what I meant. Well, I need this one open too, but I meant to open Midnight Sun because that has all some new stuff in it. So where we last left off, we had created a location system. So you could start in location A, you could travel to location B, and then I even added a save point in location B so that you could save your game. And then you could quit, you could rerun the game, and when you loaded your existing profile, it would start you at the save point. So we got all that working. That was in the last stream. And I think you had just stepped away for dinner or something, right when I was finishing that up. But then, so I ended the stream anyway. So I have added a few other things. Wrong project. Here we go. I think I might have deleted all the save files though. No, I have one. Can I open it? So you can see in this save file, if you can read it, the current location is now Sandbox B or Location B, and the current path where the player will start from is Save Point A. And there's now a hash in here, by the way, so because that's all working. Also, I fixed the issue where I was having trouble starting from other scenes. Like I should be able to start from the main menu, like so. I fixed that over the weekend as well. So I can now start from any scene, except for it has to be the main menu pretty much. I didn't mean to click on that. Ignore that. It basically has to be the main menu that I start from though, because if I start from the game scene, no save file is selected. So maybe I could update it so that yeah, exactly. It'll make this a lot easier to debug now. Also, the next thing I'm going to show you will make it easier too. So I'm thinking I could make it so I could start from the game scene and just make it so if the current save file is not selected, then we just create a new one or something like that. That way I could start from any other scene going forward. But for now, I'll just start from the main menu so I can skip all the splash and stuff. Because I need to be able to select a save file or start a new game. But you will see if I select this save file, it does in fact start me in Sandbox B at the very end of it. And I added this little bench right here. This signifies a bench, like in Hollow Knight. And I can move my character, and if I walk into the bench, the word save pops up, telling you, or like it could say rest, so you sit at the bench, right? Like in Hollow Knight. And I built an interaction system. So if I press I have it set to the E key on the keyboard, you will see down here in the bottom right, the little camel save animation show up. So we'll press that, and then sure enough, there's the little camel animation signifying to the player that Dark Souls? What do you mean, Dark Souls? Oh, you mean like sitting at the bench or sitting at a bonfire? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I mean, same difference. But yeah, so now I can go up to a save point. It'll kind of give me a notification that this is a save point, and if I interact with it, then I get the saving animation telling me as the player that my game is currently being saved. Then, the other great thing I added for, yeah, the bonfire. Dope, okay. So then the other great thing I added is I have a pause menu. Yeah! So as you can see, everything froze. I paused the game by pressing the escape key. So everything froze. I also have so I'm not using the mouse, I'm just using the keyboard right now. I have complete navigation of the UI using the keyboard and the enter key. And I'm using all the same prefab screens from the main menu. So all the settings are in here as well. You could go to any one of them, change the music, for example, right? So all that's working. So just the settings are in here. And then I could continue, which then unpauses the game. Or I could quit to menu, and then it gives me like a, are you sure, yes or no? And I hit yes, and I go back to the main menu. So now I don't have to constantly stop and replay. I can just quit to the main menu, press start, and then load back in from the same save point that we just last saved at. So it'll make debugging so much quicker now. But yeah, so everything's working pretty well. Yeah. What else did I add? I think I added something else too. But that's besides the point, I guess. That's mostly the updates that I have for today. Oops. This is new. I didn't see this yet. What is this for? This is because I paused the game. I think I hit the pause button. Well, this is new. Shit. What do you mean canvas group has been destroyed? What are you talking about? Oh, I also, all of this settings screen and stuff is UI that lives on the game scene itself. And I added a game screen, but it's just empty. as you can see, there's nothing on it. It's empty. But if you look at the canvas group, its alpha is set to 1 right now. Whoops. So that it is currently showing there's just nothing on it. But on this game screen, we would add like our health bar or our maybe what weapon we currently have, or how much magic we have, how much armor we have, endurance. I don't know. Maybe we'll go a Dark Souls direction here. But yeah, most of this is working. I'm curious though what I did to cause this error. It's the game presenter, what is he calling, is trying to show the pause screen. And the pause screen is then hiding itself? Which one is this? I think these are like 2 different screens that's having an issue. Let's quit and I think part of the problem is I pressed the pause key like 3 times on accident. And I think that broke the system. So so what I should do, yeah, because every time I press the pause key, it'll pause, and if it's paused and I press it again, it'll unpause, and then if I press it again, it'll pause. And I think because I pressed it 3 times, that it kind of did that. It went through these motions of trying to show the pause screen, then the game screen, and then the pause screen. And all that worked, but then I got an error for the canvas group on these screens because it was like in a weird order. So anyway, what I'm thinking I do is I, instead of registering for both of these events, I should register for it down here. So in on enable, I register for just the pause. And then when I pause, I immediately deregister that event so I don't accidentally trigger it again. And register for the pause, the unpause event. And then show the pause screen. And then same in unpause, just the opposite. I would re-register for the pause event and unregister from the unpause event. I think that might fix the issue that I just accidentally created. But yeah, lots of new things in here. I don't even really know. Okay, you gotta go. Okay, I'll talk to you in a bit. But yeah, so I'm not sure what I want to work on next. I kind of have an idea, but I'm not exactly sure what direction I want to go or what thing I want to work on. So let's start this again. If I pause and unpause, and I can pause and unpause a bunch of times now, and that seems to be working without fail. Now, one thing I did do is I had quit to the main menu. I do not really have any docs or charts to keep me organized. I have you to keep me organized, Memo. No, I'm just kidding. Now, this is also a new error. So that's the preload. And I'm then creating a loading scene. Do I ever delete that scene? I think I do. So like in the post load. Yeah, in the post load, I'm unloading that scene. So I guess I need to update that so that if the loading scene is not null, then we shouldn't be creating it. Because we just hit an issue where it was trying to recreate that scene, and it already existed when it did that. That's strange. But the other thing I was going to check is I had quit back to the menu, and then I had loaded back in. And, okay, so that seems to be the issue with the Canvas group. The Canvas group has been destroyed, but you are still trying to access it. Interesting. I have a feeling... I think I actually know why it's doing that. So, like, in the pause screen... or actually, down in the view class is where this exists. So here's my, like, abstract view class that represents a UI view or screen. And in the, where is it? In the awake is when I'm getting the rect transform and canvas group. And I think what's happening is now that these screens live on, well, no, this isn't even the settings screen or anything. This is the pause screen. Anyways, I'm thinking that it's getting this once, the first time that this screen is created, and then I load back to the menu, which then destroys the object, and then when I load back into the game, it kind of seems like it's not calling awake again, even though the object is being recreated. So I guess what I'm thinking is I should move these get components into like the on enable method instead. I'm not even sure if that's the issue, but we could debug really quick here too, actually. Let's set that up. Let's kind of figure out what's going on. Now the only problem is we're going to hit this debug statement like 100 times right now for every screen that exists. All right, so we play. We're going to get this statement for like every screen. I was also debugging the save file system. That's all working now. So well, the encryption part's not working, but we have it turned off. But so we can skip all that. We're going to skip all of these. It's going to keep hitting this breakpoint for like 10 or 12 times because that's how many screens are on the main menu. And this is not when we care about it. Yeah, you can kind of see each screen down here. This one's the settings screen. There we go. That was all of them. All right, so then... Oh, we're going to hit this for all the views as well. So this is like, this is the recycle view that represents an existing save profile. So we're going to get that breakpoint a bunch, actually. So then we switch into the game screen, and the awake is being called again. For the audio settings, the pause screen, the game screen, the quit screen, keyboard settings, the quit to menu screen, the brightness screen, controller settings, game settings, controls, video settings, and then we've hit all the breakpoints. Now, if I quit back to the menu, Yeah, sure enough, it's calling the awake method again for all the main menu screens. Let me skip through all of them. And let's even navigate through a few of them just to be sure that nothing else is broken. That was weird. The music was at 0 and it was still playing music. So that somewhere this isn't getting initialized properly. So I'll have to figure that out. But it's mostly working. That doesn't matter. Yeah, all this seems to be working. This was for the achievements. It's for this little thing right here. So yeah, that's all working. Even for the profiles, that's working. Now, if we load into the game screen again, the brightness settings, yeah, so the awake is being called again, like I would expect. This is one of the screens that's giving me that error. And if I step over it, sure enough, we do have a canvas group. So why it thinks the canvas group is not available when I do something is strange to me. Now, you know what? I just realized that this is a property, but it's pointing to the private canvas group. So it should be there. So now we're back in the game. And if I pause, we get that error. And I'm not sure why. Because what it's trying to do is set the alpha of the canvas group. And we just saw that for sure it is... in fact, I should probably breakpoint here is what I should have done. Continue. Okay. So yeah, I guess even though we just got the canvas group in the awake again, it doesn't seem to be working. Or it doesn't seem to have the reference anymore for some reason, which is really confusing to me, actually. Not sure I really care to take the time to fix that at the moment, but it is something I gotta figure out. So... Because, okay, so if I follow the stack trace here, what, I can't even follow the stack trace anymore because we're breakpointed. Does it say what object this is? So this is the pause screen. Why would it lose its canvas group reference? That's kind of weird. Even though we just saw that it did in fact get it again. When in its awake method. It did cache the canvas group. And now all of a sudden it doesn't have it anymore. That's strange to me. Very strange indeed. And it only seems to happen after we have played the game, quit back to the menu, and then we loaded the existing profile again. So something's kind of going wrong with the initialization, I guess, when we do that loop. Anyways, that's not a huge deal. I can actually still play and everything still works just fine, too. That's the weird thing. But if I go to any of these screens, they're all working just fine. They don't have like a reinitialization problem on the main menu. It's just when we... am I even debugging anymore? I'm not. I turned it off. I should have just pressed the play button instead. Whoops. But it's just when we load back in, after already playing, and then we pause, then it seems to have an issue. But everything still works. So I could still go to the game settings, I could make changes. I could go to the audio settings and make changes. Turn down the ambience. So strange. It's strange that it's giving me an error, but it's also still working. Yeah, fair enough. It's still giving me the error, but everything still works just fine. So, anyways, that's weird. And what if we just quit out entirely? I guess I'm not really too concerned about that. Everything still works, and in a build, you're not going to get those errors popping up. They'll just be like written to a log that's hidden from the user anyway. So it hasn't broken any functionality. So it's not super important that we fix it. My point being, what do we actually want to work on today? You know what? You had given me a list of things. Okay. We can boot up the game. We can select a new file or continue. We spawn at the beginning or a save point. We can walk into the next room. We can also walk into the next room after that. Cutscenes are working. Okay, so we could do... I'm not sure I want to take on enemies quite yet, because killing an enemy means creating enemies and then also creating the combat to attack the enemies, and that's pretty extensive. I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that yet today. But we have enemies. I'm gonna make a you guys can't even see this. Let me we'll go back to just chatting for a second. So I can write on my whiteboard. Oh, it's not even in the frame anymore. Is that better? Well, it's there, but it's blurry. Anyways, at least you can see that I'm writing on something, not just into thin air. So our checklist, we have enemies, combat, then we want dialogue, which I actually have kind of a dialogue system in here already. With a dialogue manager and stuff like that. That was previously set up. And maybe I'll go through that and kind of refactor it today and get that working again. So we have dialogue. Then, that's really kind of the last three things that we need to complete that checklist that you had given me originally in Slack memo. Because a boss is also just another type of enemy, and then requires combat to beat the boss, of course. And we already have save points working. So we pretty much are almost done with the game loop here. I guess the other things I can maybe think of are like pickups. So maybe I have like something that represents health that you can pick up and heal yourself. All of that still kind of ties into enemies and combat, though, too. Top secret scribblings. That's that's why they're blurred out. So enemies, combat, dialogue. I actually have yeah, health pickups or upgrades is what I'm thinking. So on the character, I actually already have a health script where you can set a current health and a max health. You can also turn on and off invulnerability whenever you need it. And it has a delay so that if you take damage, it will make sure to wait this amount of time before you can take damage again. So I kind of have all that set up already. And I also have one for armor. So doesn't it also depend on your vision of the game? Like Hollow Knight doesn't have health pickups, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, so it doesn't need to be a health pickup, I guess. But we're still going to need pickups of some kind, whether maybe it's like a key that goes to a door, or what else does Hollow Knight have? I'm trying to think. Oh, it has like every time you kill an enemy, you get like those little orbs that then kind of restores your magic. And then you use your magic to heal yourself, right? So like, yeah, it kind of depends on the vision, but we're still going to need a pickup system of some kind is I guess what I was going for. So I'm going to add pickup system. So the last real things on the checklist are enemies, combat, dialogue. What's going on? Like super noisy outside. You guys probably can't hear that, but it's super noisy. Anyway, so enemies, combat, dialogue, and a pickup system. Yeah, for sure. I'll talk to you in a bit. And then I guess as part of that, we're also going to want NPCs. But NPCs and characters, or NPCs and enemies are kind of like the character system. And I've already kind of got a character system. An NPC will just not have all these other abilities. They'll just have like the character and the character movement, probably. So they walk back and forth, and maybe like a character attack ability or something for the enemies. So most of that's kind of done. We just have to kind of flesh that out and make some prototype enemies or something. So I think today I'm going to try to refactor the dialogue system, see if I can get that working. And maybe we'll create a like just a random NPC that I can walk up to, and then the word talk appears above his head, so you can interact, and then it'll start the dialogue. So I think I'm going to go with that today. And if we have time, then I'll go to the pickup system as well. Oh, I gotcha. Oh, the gardeners are here today, I guess. Usually they come on Wednesday, but I think because it's a holiday week, they're getting their stuff done now. Anyways, it shouldn't bother you guys. So we'll work on dialogue today, and then if we get far enough, we will switch to the pickup system, which shouldn't be too hard either. And then the only real things left after that is just creating some enemies, creating a boss, and making the combat system work so that you as the character can actually attack an enemy or the boss. And then we'll pretty much have the full vertical slice of what this game would be. So yeah, we're getting really close. This is exciting. And then maybe a few other bugs that we might have to figure out along the way. But for the most part, things are working. So let's get into the dialogue system here. And what I'm going to do, I want to actually get rid of this dialogue events scriptable object. I'm just going to take all of these events, and we're going to make a new class called dialogue events without SO at the end, so it will not represent a scriptable object. And we're just going to make this a static class is what I was trying to do. There we go. Static class, and then we're going to paste all of those events into this static class. And we will add all our missing references, and then we will add the word, oops, if I can spell, static to all of those. There we go. And then we'll fill these out a little bit too. So event invoked to show dialogue. Event invoked when dialogue has started. Event invoked when dialogue has completed. So this is the event that we fire to tell the dialogue manager to show the dialogue. Or the dialogue view, I should say, for the UI. And then the dialogue started and dialogue complete. Let's make that completed. Actually, I like to use completed for some reason, because I guess it matches started, right, with the D at the end. So these are for anyone else to listen to, like maybe the music or the audio system listens for this dialogue started event, and when dialogue has started, we then cut the music volume in half or something like that, because maybe we have actual voice acting that plays audio. It plays its audio along with the UI text that you would see on the screen, and those kind of play at the same time. That way we know like when to trigger that and when to put the music back to its full volume, for example. That's just one example of why we might use that. So this is show dialogue. The dialogue scriptable object. And the character profile, which I think is also a scriptable object, actually. It is, yeah. So the reason I pass in the character profile is because that will tell the dialogue system who you're talking to, so we can put their image on the UI. And then the dialogue itself has like the actual text that will be said, as well as the responses that you as the player are allowed to choose, as well as the audio that might play with those dialogue, with the dialogue text. And then we even have like a repeat Boolean, so that a character can repeat themselves multiple times, and a integer for the repeat count. So maybe we have a character that you have to talk to 3 times, and the first 2 times you talk to the character says the same thing, but then the 3rd time, the character says something different, that you could only get if you talk to the character 3 times. And that might trick the player, or it could be like a hint that this character is giving you, but you can only get that hint after talking to the character a certain number of times. So that's kind of what this represents. Also, okay, I was filling these out. Let me finish filling out the comments for these. Notify that dialogue has started. Notify that dialogue has completed. All right, so we have our static dialogue events class. So now we're going to get rid of the dialogue events scriptable object. Boom. Now, I might recreate that at a later point. Its purpose was so that the events lived on a scriptable object, but I have since changed my events to just be in a static class because I do most of the coding anyway, and so that's how I set things up. But at some point, I might recreate the scriptable object version of this, so that it can be dragged into a field in the inspector for someone to use as like their action or something, right? And that's more for a designer purpose. Right now, I know how to use the system, but maybe at some point I might hire someone that's going to help me finish building this out, and they might want a more designer-friendly approach, where they can just kind of hook things up instead of having to code the events, things like that. So that's why I switched everything to a static class, but that's also why I had a scriptable object version of these event classes. So it kind of depends on who's working on the project. Might use one or the other, I guess, is my point. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to delete this dialogue event scriptable object because the script no longer exists. So let's just get rid of that to clean up. And then as you can see, we already have some dialogue here. So we have like NPC A from the village. And then he has some dialogue. Hi there. I'm an NPC. Welcome to our village. And then here's like the different responses. If I click on a response, we would then fill in the response and the dialogue scriptable object that it is a response of. I might not need to fill this in here, actually. I'm wondering if I can do that in an easier, more designer-friendly way. But yeah. So we kind of have a dialogue system with some examples going. We just got rid of this dialogue event scriptable object, so let's delete the reference to it here. And then right here, instead of calling that, we're going to call the static dialogue events class dialogue started. And maybe I'm going to get rid of the word dialogue from all of these events. Because since you're calling into the dialogue events, it's pretty clear that these are dialogue related. So it's kind of redundant to have the word dialogue. Show started and completed. There we go. All right, so then down here on enable, we just want to switch to the static dialogue events class, and it's now on show. And then same here, we want to switch to the static dialogue events class and rename that on show. I think we have a few others to fix. So dialogue events static class, and it's actually called completed now. And I guess that's it. So yeah, so now we got rid of this extra scriptable object that I don't really need, but maybe I'll recreate it at a later point for designer-friendly purposes. But for now, we don't need it. In fact, this does not need to be public. And this can be a base behavior instead of a mono behavior. It's the same exact thing, but my base behavior class has a custom editor for it, so it like looks nicer, has my logo and stuff. And then in here, we also have reference to the input scriptable object. So if the player is watching dialogue on the screen, we are then listening to the advance event, which means like the player has pressed the A button or the space bar or the enter button, and that signifies to the dialogue screen we want to skip the current line of dialogue and go to the next line of dialogue, right? Something like that. And we're just going to call this advance. I usually add the word on when this is an actual event. So my events are named on something. Like here in the dialogue events, we have on show represents the actual event. But then how I respond to it, the method that would be called, I like to just make it the word without the word on as a prefix. So yeah, and then this is no longer needs to be public. And so I'm actually going to just reorder this. It should be down here because it goes underneath all the private variables. And then we will fill in some tooltips really quick, just for completeness. The input scriptable object. The text typing speed, because I've already got the dialogue set up, or the UI set up, so when it reads a line of dialogue, it doesn't just show the whole line right away. It actually like types it in a character at a time, or a few characters at a time. We can change the speed of that. Then we have, we're going to call this audio, to be specific. And we actually don't need these anymore. The audio channel signifies what channel to play audio on, whether it's music, ambience, sound effects, or voice. And I actually refactored that so that those live inside of the audio queue itself. So we don't actually need them here anymore, is my point. Let's see. This is the dialogue selection sound effects audio queue. The dialogue typing sound effects. And we actually don't need these either, because these audio configurations, they represent like the configuration for the audio source, like what volume, what pitch to play at, different things like that. And again, that now lives inside of the audio queue. So we no longer need reference to it anymore because we already have it inside of this audio queue object. So here it has its own audio config. So those are old refactors that I had done that I never got back to updating this system. And then this is the dialog UI view. Cool. Now, so here, we were using the sound effects channel, the reference of it, to then play the dialogue selection sound. And because I updated it, or refactored it, we can just call dialogue selection sound.play. And then this internally knows which channel and which configuration to use, so we don't like need all that extra information anymore. So it makes the code look a lot cleaner. Now, this might get confusing though. So, because we don't have reference to a voice channel anymore. What I'm gonna need reference to, so this one I can update. This is dialogaudio.play. And the voice is an audio key. So one thing I didn't do is an audio cue. When you call the play method, it doesn't return its audio key. It does set an audio key. It just doesn't return it. So I might have to update that to return an audio key. We'll come back to that. And let me comment out that just so I remember what I'm doing. And is there anywhere else? So I guess I could just cache the audio key. I think instead what I want to do, what does dialogue audio is a audio queue SO. So instead, let's change the voice, the thing that we're caching, instead of it being an audio key, it's going to be an audio queue, which is super confusing because you guys might not understand this, but this is my system, so I understand. So then what we would do here is instead of setting the voice here, we say voice equals the dialogue audio, and then we would just say voice.play. That way, up here, when we're calling stop on the voice, instead of checking if it's an invalid audio key, we can just say if it's null, or if it's not null, voice.stop. There we go. So yeah, that'll do that. Then same thing here. We just call voice.stop. And actually, I think that already... I think if it's not valid, then or if it's not playing, we don't actually have to check if it's null, I think, is my point. So right here, instead of checking if the voice is null, well, maybe we do, because maybe the first time through, it is null, because we haven't set it yet. I guess what we can do Da, 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 da. Let me think here. I guess I could just keep the null check. It's not a big deal. But it really only affects the first time through. Or no, even when we close the dialogue, we would also say voice equals null, because it's not there shouldn't be a voice anymore. We've exited the dialogue. The voice variable can actually be reset to null. Oh, I'm still using coroutines in here too. Oh, geez. So yeah, so then here is the dialogue typing sound play. That's all we need there to update that. And we're just making some quick fixes because of a refactor I did quite a while ago, actually. And that should actually do it, I think. So... The only other thing I think I might do... maybe I'll keep this as a coroutine. I mean, I could make it asynchronous and await instead. Where is this being called from? Right here. Do I want to make it asynchronous? Let's just make sure it works first, and then we can look into making it asynchronous. That way I don't go down some rabbit hole. All right, then... we have to add our dialogue manager. We don't have a prefab for this yet. So let's create a dialogue manager game object, and we'll put the dialogue manager class onto it. We'll fill in the input scriptable object because that exists. And do I have a dialogue view? I do not. I think I used to have these things, though. That's odd. I don't know. Maybe I accidentally deleted it. But that's okay. We can... is this, and why does it have a... I think this is for, like, in the game. And if that's the case, let's fill in the animations for it. This is for a completely different system, of course, but I'm just realizing there's still some other stuff that I never fully cleaned up, so I'm just cleaning it up really quick. Then let's make the dialogue manager is a dynamic manager, but we don't have the UI for it yet. So let's actually fill in some UI, and let's take we'll just recreate it. It's fine. Actually, let's do this. We're gonna put the save view on here just so that there's some UI there. But then we're going to unpack this prefab, and we're going to call this dialogue. So it's the dialogue view. And we're going to get rid of the animation. So now we just kind of have like an empty UI screen Oh, and the last thing we should do is, of course, remove the old save script, and let's create a dialogue view script. Dialogue view script. Oh, I actually already had one. So we can get rid of the one I just created because I'm dumb and I didn't see that that was there. And then we can take this dialogue view game object and drag the dialogue view script onto it. So then it has animations. We could do like a fade in and fade out. That's kind of just what I select by default. But I have other animations too, like scale or slide. But let's just, oh, I guess I did change it. Let's just leave it at fade for now. And then what we want to set up, do we have a response button? Well, we have the class for it, I guess. Where did all these, I thought I had prefabs for all of this already. Let's make a new folder here called dialogue. And so we want to set up in this view, we need a name label, a dialogue label. Let's go ahead and add some labels. So label name, label dialogue, and we'll update how these look in a second. I'm just kind of getting them created so I can drag their reference into the view. Responses host. Interesting. I can't remember how I did this last time. I think this represents the parent object. I probably had like a maybe not a scroll view, but I probably had a whatchamacallit, like a grid layout. So let's just create an empty thing, call it responses, and then we can drag that reference in there. Boom. And then we have to make a response button prefab as well. One other thing I want to add is an image that represents the background. So then we can make this like black and 50% transparency. And let's put it maybe at the bottom of the screen. And let's make it like, well, now, see, I think I want this to auto adjust its size based on the amount of text. And we're going to get complicated if we start doing that. But so for now, let's just keep it simple. Let's make this like 1500 and like 500. And then this is then like the dialogue window. In fact, instead of fading in and out, we're going to slide in from the bottom. So in theory, it'll start down here off the screen. And when you then talk to an NPC and start dialogue, it'll kind of slide up into place, show its dialogue, and then when it hides itself, it'll then slide back off the screen. So I like that. Let's keep it as slide in and slide out for now instead. Then should we just put all of these on that for now? That works. Let's maybe make that go across the top. Make the size a little bit bigger, and we'll center it. So this is like who you're talking to. And maybe we come down like 25 pixels just so it's not right on the edge. In fact, maybe we do add a vertical layout group is what I'm thinking. So then we have our responses object, and that could then be like a grid layout. So depending on how many responses you have, it would fill in, it would instantiate buttons for how many responses you can choose from. So yeah, let's do that. Let's, in fact, I want to duplicate this object, and we'll call this like the panel, and we'll get rid of the image, the background image, and the other stuff. And then we'll get rid of all that from here as well, and then we'll put this, that way all of these live like under this panel, basically, is what I'm trying to do. So then here's the background for the panel, and it'll be a layout element that ignores the layout. And then the panel itself can have a vertical layout group, and it'll stretch everything to the right size. Actually, we do want that, I think. I think we do all of them, actually. Yeah, because then it fills up the whole object. And then let's make this like, doesn't need to be that big. Make it 50. What kind of text do we want? Maybe just like Open Sans regular. Poppins regular. We'll just do Open Sans regular. Same for the name. We'll do Open Sans, but in fact, if we can just use the regular one, but then we can bold it. I like to do that better instead of using the actual bold font asset. And then the dialogue. I guess we can center. This is the dialogue, ... Right? So when you talk to someone, it'll have their name up here. And we can actually adjust some of these. So let's put like a layout element on it. And let's say it's min height should just be like 100, or preferred height should be 100. I think I got to do both of them. How big did I make this in the first place? Is 500. So we also need to put a layout element on this guy and say his preferred height is like 300. I don't think we need the min height. I think we just need preferred height. So preferred height 100, preferred height 300, and then same here. This is going to need a grid layout, as well as a layout element to say the preferred height should be 100 again. Then we can add a button. Where are we starting? We want to start horizontal in the middle center. So that way, so we have the layout group. And we'll give it a fixed row count of 2, I think. Can I adjust the button? How do I adjust the button? Maybe... I want to make this like a grid, so there's like 4 buttons total. I might have to take this out here. I guess just turn off the grid layout for a second. Then we can make these like 250 by 100's probably good, actually. Rename that to label. And then the idea is... Oh, duh, I can just adjust the cell size. So we want like, what, 250? I figured it out. And then we want like 50 spacing in between all of them. So then that way, if we have multiple responses, they kind of all show up like in a grid, right? We might have to make this slightly bigger. Say this is like 750. This can just take up the whole background. That might be too high. We'll kind of adjust later. Not a big deal. But yeah, so then we have like what represents multiple responses. And we have a fixed row count of 2. So if we continue to add responses, it just kind of keeps them all in a nice grid. So this is who you're talking to. This is what they're saying to you. And then these buttons will represent the response that you can say back to them. And instead of saying the word button on it, it would say like, yes, you are correct. And like this would be like the response that you can pick to say back to the person or the NPC that you're talking to, if that makes sense. So cool. All right, so we can actually delete all these other buttons. And we'll say this is a response as kind of like a prototype placeholder. So this thing then represents our dialogue view. And as the dialogue is filled out, it will continue to type itself here and auto adjust as it goes, right? Something like that. So like if that's something that someone was saying to you, you would see it being typed out like so, and this box will then kind of auto adjust itself to handle that. So this is some dialogue. I'm just putting it back to the placeholder here. And then this is a response. Perfect. Okay, so then let's, I think I deleted the references somehow. Let's just get all those filled back in. That's the responses. And then this button, we're actually going to make a prefab of it. And it should actually have a response button script on it. So then that just has reference to the label. So then we can set what the response is on this button. So then we drag that in here as a prefab. We delete it from here. And then we drag that prefab up into this script so that it can instantiate response buttons based on the dialogue for however many responses you might have. And right now, I think I just have it set to instantiate those, like I just said. Yeah, so where's the instantiate? So right here, it instantiates the prefab, and then it also destroys them when it's done. We will probably set that up so it's like a recycled system. So the dialogue view will instantiate like 6 or 8. You probably won't have more than 5 responses, honestly. So it'll instantiate 5 response buttons at the beginning and then just kind of hide them all. And then depending on the number of responses we get, it will unhide as many as it needs. And then when we're done, instead of destroying them, we'll just hide them again. That way it's kind of like an object pooling system. Cool. All right, so we have a dialogue view that represents dialogue. And our dialogue manager can then have reference to that view. And one other thing we should do is should drag this view and create a prefab out of it as well, because there should be a prefab for that. That way we could actually create different dialogue views for maybe different types of dialogue. Maybe there's a basic dialogue when you're talking to just like regular NPCs. Maybe there's a super fancy looking dialogue that's used instead when you're talking to a boss or someone who's super important. I don't know. I'm just trying to leave it open here. So that should then complete our dialogue manager. The last thing we need is some sound effects. No, it should go under here, actually. Audio cues. Sound effects. Create an audio cue. And what sound effects do we need? We need the selection sound and the typing sound. I actually want to switch those around. I'm very particular about the order of things. But the typing sound should technically come first because that will be the sound effect that plays as dialogue is being typed into the view. And then the selection sound is the sound effect that plays when you as the player pick a response. You have selected a response. So I'm just kind of putting them in the order that they're going to be used. So if we go back here, how do we have all these other audio cues labeled? Credits, music, SO. So I'd make this like dialogue typing SFX SO. And then we will create another one. This will be dialogue selection SFX SO. And then we have to fill these out. So dialogue typing these are sound effects. In fact, I'm not going to put the word dialogue on the front because these are just generic sound effects that we're playing. That way I don't get confused because these should just be on the sound effects channel. So sound effects audio configuration and on the sound effects audio channel. And then we would fill in whatever the sound effect is here. Type sound 1. Perfect. What does that sound like? Interesting. I kind of like all of them. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's kind of low. Here, let me turn that down. It's just kind of like a glitch. But what that reminds me of is like the dialogue from Undertale or something like that, for example. So typing, what we can actually do is we can put multiple sounds in here, and put all 3 sound effects in here, and then we could make it like randomly use the sounds that are in this list. So it won't just use one, like da 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 da. All of these kind of have different pitches, so it'll sound random. Which maybe I don't want, maybe I do want. I don't know. I'm just kind of messing around right now. Then, so we have a typing sound effect. Now we need to fill these in with sound effect, audio channel and configuration, and to pick a sound that represents a selection. So like UI select, I guess. What does that sound like? I'm not sure I like that one. I wish they would make it so that like as you're going through these right here, like you have this list of audio sounds that you want to pick from. And I wish they would make it so when you click on one, it actually like plays the sound so that you know what it sounds like, I guess, instead of having to then go find it afterwards. Let's try this one. Wow, that one's awful. I like 2. Number 2 sounds good. Number 3 is kind of weird. Number 4 is awful. So I think I like 2 the best. So let's go back in, get our selection here, and we'll select number 2. So that'll be our sound. In fact, I think I'm just going to keep just 1 sound for now. We'll change it back to random in a bit. Let's keep it simple and just have 1 sound. That way we can very clearly hear like what it sounds like and what's happening. So then we're just going to fill these in. So the dialogue manager now has a typing sound effects and a selection sound effects. And last but not least, we would make this a dynamic manager prefab. So then now we can delete it from the scene because it shouldn't be in the scene. It should be something that gets instantiated. And we then want to add it to our dynamic manager's profile with the location manager and the player manager. We would then add in the dialogue manager from somewhere. Oh, there it is. I'm just blind. There we go. So now, when we get into the game, let me save everything. So if we like start from the main menu, and then we load a profile, now that we're in the game, it is part of the dynamic manager. So here's our dialogue manager, and it's not even showing anything yet. But if we were to send the event with the dialogue to show, that screen, this view would then, it wouldn't just like appear like it just did. It would actually slide in, because that's the animation that we have set. So yeah. Okay, cool. So I guess the next thing is let's create some sort of NPC character that you can interact with to start some dialogue. Right? So we have our... Oh, wow, that one looks awful. Is that what he really looks like? I thought I made the hat better than that. I guess I can't see it when it's so small. Anyways, let's, or maybe I'm using this. No. Let's, I don't know how I want to do this yet. Let's just make a, an NPC. Let's create, say, a... I kind of want to just copy the player. So let's just duplicate that. And we'll call this Sandbox NPC. That doesn't need to be capitalized. And then we'll put that into the NPC folder. Now we can go into here and let's just remove all these abilities from him. Because he's not a player, and he doesn't need to be a camera target. He doesn't need to be able to do any of these things. Maybe he can move back and forth. I don't know. So he has, what we're going to need is not to use the player brain. We'll need some sort of other, like an AI brain, because this is, the player brain is reading input. So if this character has the player brain, as we're moving our main character, this character would also move, and we don't want that. Characters, brains. Let's create, I don't know that I have an AI brain yet. Let's go to the player brain. We have not created one yet, so let's just create a AI brain. So this brain for a character represents an AI, which would be an enemy or an NPC or something like that. Open up the player brain, so it should inherit from character brain, which means it then needs to implement these methods, which don't really need to do anything at the moment. And we might actually abstract this out and then make different versions of it. So like we'd have like a simple AI brain, we'd have like an enemy AI brain. Doesn't really matter at the moment. The point is we need, what I needed to add to it though was the ability to create the asset itself. Let's add the references, characters, brain, an AI brain. We'll put that as 0, and we'll change this one to 1. And we don't really need the word new there or there. And we're probably going to change this later, but for now, we're just going to leave it empty so it doesn't do anything. And then if we go to the scriptable object, we can now create a new AI brain, and it won't do anything. Whereas the player brain is reading all the input and stuff, but this simple AI brain that we created, which we're going to enhance upon further at a later time. Sorry, I'm having trouble with words apparently. So we will update this at a later time to actually do something. So we could, like, for example, make an AI brain that would tell its character to just move back and forth, like to patrol. Or we could make an AI brain that would follow the main character around wherever the main character goes, or something like that. So we can make different types of these, but for now we're just creating like an empty one because we're going to fill it into this NPC. So instead of the NPC having a player brain, he'll now have this AI brain, which means he basically won't do anything. And we'll remove the movement script for now too. So this guy now represents our NPC. The only problem is he does look exactly like us. So why don't we maybe get rid of that? And it kind of looks weird without it. It doesn't matter. We'll get rid of the bill of the hat, because maybe he's like looking straight on at us. And then we're going to change the color to, like, let's say green. That way we just know that this is not us. It's some other character, right? And he definitely does not need the trail effects. And do we have an actual player class? So I think this character class is supposed to be abstract, and then I'm supposed to make a player or like an NPC from it. Now, I guess the last thing is we're going to have to add a script to this character that's going to look similar to our save point script, where it will have some text that shows up above its head. Where do we put this script? I guess let's create a mono behavior and we'll call it dialogue, because that's what it's going to be doing. And then we'll drag that script onto the character. And then in this dialogue script, we're going to basically have some of the same things from this save point class. The talk text. So this will just be some text that shows up above the character's head that says talk, to represent that you can interact with it. And another thing we're going to need to do is implement that interact interface. And then still doing similar stuff here. I don't know that we need the can save though. And this will be talk text.enabled, talk text.enabled. One thing we do want though is the layer mask. That should be, yeah, that should be the private layer mask. We don't need that variable anymore. We don't need to override this because it's not inheriting from anything that it would override. We're going to turn off the talk text to begin with. And basically what this is doing is when the player walks into this character's collider, the word text will appear. I mean, I'm sorry, not the word text, but the word talk will appear above their head. And then if you walk away from the character, the word talk will disappear. And that will signify to the player that you can talk with this NPC. And then the last thing we'll do is we're going to need some actual dialogue. So this would be the dialogue SO. And change that to say the dialogue scriptable object. So this will then represent the dialogue to speak when we interact with the character to talk to them. Sorry. My brain is not braining today. I did not get enough sleep last night. But I'm still good enough to be setting all this up, apparently. I'm just, as I'm talking through it, I'm realizing I'm having trouble communicating it to you guys because my brain is not braining very well. So, okay. So then here, going good, pretty good, Memo. Welcome back. So what I chose to work on is the dialogue system. And we kind of have, we created the UI for the dialogue. And right now I'm creating like another character that represents an NPC that we could then interact with and start dialogue with. So we can then test the dialogue system. So I'm just kind of finishing that up right now. So I would think we say now, you know what? I think this should actually be a character ability. Because then we have access to the character's profile. This now needs to be an override. And we want to make sure we call the base dot awake as well. Then here, well, now in the dialogue scriptable object, I think we want to make a method that's like, let's, I guess, call it show for now. And then we'll pass in the character profile. Character profile. And that would then call the dialogue events.show this dialogue. Oh, I guess I don't have to pass in the character profile, but we would then pass in the character profile as well. Okay. I think, and let's rename this to character dialogue, because it's probably a character of some kind that you're going to be talking to. Since this is a character ability, we'll call it character dialogue. Now, how do I want to set this? So first off, let me finish filling this in. Dialogue so dot show the dialogue. Maybe we want to call it something else, but we'll just call it show for now. And then we're going to pass in our, how do we get it? Oh, I guess I have it underscored, but it's protected. So let's change that really quick. I don't like that convention. This should be an uppercase character. No, ignore that. This should be uppercase has character because these are protected values. In fact, that should be uppercase is blocked. Oh, but wait a minute. We could just fill all that out in here. And then we don't need this method. Boom. Oh, shit. I'm still on the just chatting screen. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Man, I don't even know how long I was on that screen. Whoops. I really gotta remember that. I had switched when I was writing stuff down on the whiteboard. I don't think I ever switched back. Funny enough. Okay. Yeah. Just use your imagination, and anything is possible. All right. So, I think this is all good. No, that can't be made. It doesn't matter. So then this is now the character that we have, and we want their profile. Do we not have access to the profile? I guess we do not. Profile. And then the character dialogue can pass in that profile. And then the last thing, we need to go update the character class itself to surface that profile. And this would not be virtual. Actually, I don't even think this should be virtual. Is anyone overwriting this? I don't think so. That should not be virtual. That should also not be virtual. And this is the profile. And we'll call this profile. And then we'll call this, or point this to the profile. And then we'll get rid of these plumbing regions here. We can merge that into a pattern just for fun. And actually, this code, the flipping code, just flips the character back and forth. This would actually go into like a character animator class, but we just have it here because we haven't created that class yet. So we now have a character dialogue ability that can sit on a character, and when you enter the character's collider, the word talk will appear above them. That's what this UI text is. And when you exit the collider, the word talk will disappear, as well as when we actually start talking to them, we also want it to disappear. This will then call the dialogue show. And does the dialogue manager change? So when it shows dialogue, we do. We enable the dialogue input, which will make it so that you can't accidentally interact with the character again and restart the dialogue until the dialogue has finished. Is in theory. Yeah, we don't really need this is active. But I guess what we would do is oh no, on completed. So I guess we would register for the dialogue events on completed. Event, and we would then call this dialogue completed method. So when dialogue is completed, we would then turn the talk text back on, I guess. Because while you're talking to them, the player's input should be disabled. So you won't actually be able to control the character until it's done. And when the dialogue is completed, we will also unregister from that event because we don't really. We don't want to stay registered to that event all the time. It's just when we first talk to them, we register for it, and when the dialogue is completed, we then turn the talk text back on above the character's head, signifying that the dialogue is done, and if you want to talk to them again, then you could. Cool. I think that's pretty much it. Then... Oh, hold on one second, guys. I just got a package. I'm going to go grab that really quick. I will be right back. All right, sorry about that, guys. Just grabbing something from the the mailman. Let's get back to that screen. There we go. Okay, now where was I? Let's go to our save point prefab. I thought I had created one. I guess not. Let's go to the sandbox B location. Cancel, actually. Thank you, thank you. Go to the sandbox B location. We will go to the save point here, and we're just copying this text, and then we will go back to our sandbox NPC, and we will paste that text above the NPC. It says talk. You can talk to this guy. And then we'll position it at like 0.5. There we go. So then we have a character dialogue ability. We want to look for the player, and we'll fill in that text into this field, and then we will give it the, we'll call this, I'm just going to get rid of the word village. We'll call this sandbox NPC A, something like that. So we now have an NPC that has the character dialogue ability. It has some dialogue. It's looking for the player, and then it has the word talk above him. That when you enter this player's collider, which what kind of collider do we require here? I guess we could use any collider. Wait, what? Oh, I don't know that that can be serialized. Interesting. Interesting. Anyways, what I'm thinking I want to do is I want to edit this collider, just make it wider, right? So let's make it like size of 2.5. Make it a size of 3. So if you come within this collider, the word talk will appear, and if you exit the collider, the word talk will disappear. And while you're inside of this collider, you can then interact and start the dialogue with that character. Okay. So, in fact, let's put him here in the sandbox B location under characters NPCs. We will drag our sandbox NPC in here. And let's maybe reposition him to over here. And we will flip the text around really quick. The reason why it's backwards, so if I put it back to normal, you can see the word talk is backwards. That's because this location is a mirror of the sandbox A location, and I flipped the whole thing backwards. So now everything's showing backwards. So instead of, so we'll just update the text so that it doesn't show backwards right now. In theory, we should now be able to walk up to this character and start some dialogue with him or her. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens here. I could have started from the main menu, but I forgot. All right, so we'll start. We will select this profile. Here's us, and you can see, oh, he's actually floating a little bit. Probably because I screwed up, and his collider is an actual collider. It's not a trigger. And actually adjust it upwards so it's at like his feet. And let's try again. And this time we will start from the main menu because we don't need to start from the very beginning. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Let's try this again because it needs to be a trigger for it to work. So we load in. Oh, but then he's going to fall. Why would he fall? Because he has a rigid body and stuff. I guess we could always... sorry, a few things I didn't realize. So sandbox NPC. We want this to be a... kinematic rigid body, because then he won't move. And this need can be discrete. That can be start, awake, and interpolate's fine. Then, all right, one more time. Let's try this again. We should be able to load in. He's still falling. Interesting. What am I doing wrong? I wonder, am I setting... I might be setting the rigid body's properties. So we get the rigid body. Well, we're applying gravity to the rigid body, regardless. You know, this is where I would say the character class probably should not inherit from a physics object. The physics object should be its own class. And then the character class could have reference to it. Or actually, it shouldn't even have reference to it. It doesn't need a reference to it. But because not all characters are going to have physics. So the physics object class should be its own modular thing. That way we're following the composition over inheritance rule. So a character can then exist, and it doesn't have to be a physics object. And a physics object can exist, and they can all play nicely together. How do I want to do this then? Now the problem is, oh, we can actually fill this in with the NPC profile, NPC. And then I think we just turn off simulated. I think that might work. The problem is the character script inherits from the physics object script, and the physics object script is applying gravity each frame. And I don't want it to. Or I could update this so that if it collides with something, it stops applying gravity. Like if it's touching ground, it would stop applying gravity. That's another possibility, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Let me think. What is the best way to test this really quick? Dun, 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 dun. Um, how do I want to do this? What does this material do? It just has nothing. Okay. I guess I could just add another collider. That way it won't fall through the floor, and it would be a regular collider. Let's just do that for now. That's probably the easiest way to test this. We'll have a regular collider that's not a trigger. So then you can see you can kind of see the regular collider goes around its body. And then we have another collider that is a trigger. That should technically work. Just for testing purposes. We're going to clean all that up and make it better later on. We just want to test that we can actually start dialogue with this character. Okay, perfect. So now he's sitting there. He won't move. And if we walk into his trigger... Actually, he doesn't have the other trigger. I don't think. Let's see, what's going on? He does have the other trigger. And it's set as a trigger. And he has the character dialogue that's looking for the player layer mask. And then we have our player that's on the player layer. I don't know if the two colliders are conflicting with each other. Okay, I might have to do some quick refactoring here so that the character is not a physics object. Also, the interface should not inherit from physics object. Now, why wouldn't that be serializable? It's a scriptable object. Oh, because this is not a mono behavior anymore. Yeah, that would help. Okay, so we now have a character. And just to make this nice and quick, we're actually going to give it the physics object. We'll just call it physics. And in its awake method, which we'll make just protected virtual for now, we will say physics equals get component I physics object. Okay. Then we can update these. So physics.velocity and physics.velocity. It's just because a lot of the character abilities were accessing those physics through the character class itself, which it shouldn't be doing. So instead, we will go down into the base character ability, I think. Let me think about this. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave it here so that we can still access it through the character, because I don't want to do like a huge refactor right now. But we will continue to clean this up as we go. So now, and let's go into the I character profile interface, and where do we put that? Put it underneath everything. Okay, we'll put it here. We'll say you should be able to get the physics of a character. That way, all of these abilities just need to be updated with physics dot. So this will be our quick refactor. And then we will actually fix all this up in a bit. So that way we can still access the character's physics if we're using it. But then for like the NPC character, we don't have to use it. This is a temporary workaround. And I think that fixes everything. Okay. So now we can go back to our sandbox NPC. Oh, we have a character editor class too. Shit. It's not going to have any of that, I don't think. I think that's all under the physics class now. We just need the profile, the brain, and the model. I think that fixes that. Okay. Then, back on our sandbox NPC, let's get rid of this other collider that's not the trigger. We're going to keep the one that is a trigger. We then have a character class that does not inherit from a physics object. So this is no longer a physics object. In fact, it doesn't even need a rigid body because it's not a physics object. It's just a character that represents an NPC that has a brain that does nothing. So he's a dumb character. And then he has a character dialogue ability where we can then talk to him, basically. Now, I think that will work. Let's double check. Shit. Oh, yeah, sorry. One more thing I need to fix is on the sandbox player, because the character class is no longer a physics object, we also need to add the physics object script to the character. Because this character represents our player, and we do want it to we do want the player to have physics, basically, right? Okay, I think that'll fix that. No, not quite. What are we missing? Can we still move anyway? Well, we can move back and forth, but we can't actually move the character. Huh. So I'm assuming it's saying that the physics is null. And the character physics should be pointing to the physics. How do I want to handle this? Shit. Yeah, I knew this was going to get complicated. All because we want to have a character that doesn't have physics, that represents an NPC. How best to handle this? I mean, I guess I could go through each ability. And let's copy those and make this an iPhysics object. Call this physics, and we'll call this as physics. And then in the await, we'll duplicate that, and we'll set the has physics to the physics object. And then in all of our actually, let's get rid of the physics object from the character, because that'll then tell us everywhere that we have to update that. We can get rid of it from here as well. And this code is going to move into a character animator class eventually. But we'll leave it here for now. Now let's close some of these other classes that we don't need so we don't get confused. And let's just go back through the abilities, and we'll say if not as character or not as physics, then return. And instead of getting the physics from the character, we can just call physics directly. So let's go through and remove the word character from all of these. Same here, not as physics or is blocked return. All right, that should handle that one. Delete the word character, delete the word character, delete the word character. If not has character or not has physics or is blocked, return. That fixes that one. This is just physics. Physics. Delete the word character. Delete the word character. So this is a bit more of a refactor than I was hoping to do, but it's something that is necessary to be able to have characters that either have or do not have physics. So we'll just take the time to do it really quick. One more thing. Just physics. Okay. Physics is on ground, and if not as physics, return. Okay. Physics. The word physics is starting to sound weird to me because I'm saying it so much. Has physics. And copy that to put it there. Okay, and then I think we have just this last ability. Yes, they NPCs will be of type character, because I'll show you in just a second. Let me finish updating this really quick. Um, okay, so the reason why is because this is the character class, and you can ignore all of this code that I have highlighted. That will all be separated out into a character animator class, because it's actually doing something to flip the character back and forth based on their movement. So I just have it here because I haven't created the character animator class. Um, the character class just represents an object that has a character profile, a character brain, and a model for the sprite renderer. And then we'll give access to those things. And so the reason an NPC needs to be a character, I mean, technically it does not, but in the way that I'm making it, it will inherit from the character class, because it needs to have a profile, which will represent the name of that character, as well as maybe an image that represents them for dialogue purposes, something like that. Um, and they will have a brain object which will determine their movement. So I might make an NPC brain that just walks them back and forth and then stops for a second and then walks them back and forth or something, so the brain is kind of like, we're feeding input into the character itself. And then the profile is like the profile of that character, their name and other metadata. And then we'll also have their model. So this is what a character really represents, or the character class. So it makes sense for every other type of character in the game to inherit from this class, whether it's an NPC or an enemy or the player itself. Because it will just represent, like if it was a boss enemy, for example, it would have that boss's profile that might have the boss's name, how much health they have, something like that. I don't know. That's kind of the idea of it. Um, so yeah. So I think we just updated all that. Let's see if that works. Damn it. Oh, I forgot to put right here, if not has physics. So if something doesn't have physics, then we're not. I think there was another class that's going to error out too. Hold on. Let's just play a few times and we'll get rid of those last couple errors. No, that actually did it. Okay. But now I still can't move my player, which is strange, because we do have the physics. Oh, well, that would also help. My physics object class is not even implementing its own interface. Duh. So let's implement that really quick. So collider is on ground, is on ceiling, drag, gravity scale, velocity. Do I not have any of those things in here? I think they're all just private or something. So drag is going to be get the rigid body RB2D dot drag And then one more thing we gotta update here. Almost there. So update that to have drag. This will basically be the same here, except it will be the gravity scale. And then it'll actually be the same down here as well. Except it'll be the velocity. And then is on ground actually just points to the grounded variable. I don't think I actually have one for the ceiling yet. That's fine. And then do we have to have the collider somewhere? Where is it? I actually have all of this code already refactored in another project. I should just bring all that in. I was just hoping that this would go quick because I'm trying to just focus on the dialogue system, and make sure that that's working because that was our goal for today. I wasn't planning to refactor all of this. I guess we'll just say we're just gonna make a collider 2D called collider 2D, and then we'll just get it in the on enable, I guess. And then we can point this collider. Actually, I don't know that anyone's using the collider itself. I think we just need the is on ground, and then the drag, the gravity scale, and the velocity. I don't think we need anything else. But let's just fill those in really quick so that this does in fact inherit from iPhysics object, or implement the interface, that is. The reason none of these other abilities were finding it is because we were looking for that iPhysics object interface, and on the physics object class itself, we didn't have it wasn't implementing the interface because I'm dumb. But that should fix it. I think that is the rest of what we needed to finish that refactor. And it's not even a real refactor. There we go. Okay, so we now have a player character, and the trigger is still not working for this sandbox character. Sandbox NPC. Let us... I actually want to change it to be a box collider anyway. It actually, a circle collider would be better. But we're just going to make it a box collider for now so that we can like expand out the radius a lot, and then it's not like sticking through the ground or anything. So if you're within like 2 units on each side of this character, then you can talk to him. Let's go back to 3. So if you're within 1.5 units on each side of the character, then you should be able to talk to them. And that needs to be a trigger. And let's double check our character dialogue. On trigger enter, and on trigger exit. So in theory, that should work. Okay, let's try that. I don't know why that would change anything, just switching the collider really quick, but... Interesting. So why... So we have an NPC, and we're within his collider right now that is set as a trigger, or else we would just bump into it. And this script on trigger enter should be enabling the text above the character's head. Let's, I guess, breakpoint right here. I wonder if I could just walk out really quick. Walk out of the trigger and then start. No, because breakpointing's gonna restart the project, I think. Or restart the play mode. I think I have to restart play mode anyways. Alright, let's try one more time. Now that we are breakpointed. Damn it. Where else am I breakpointed? Okay, get rid of that. That was from something earlier. Okay. So, interesting. It's not even calling on trigger enter what at all. Why wouldn't it call on trigger enter? I'm confused by that. This object clearly has a trigger collider on it, a 2D trigger collider on it. And it's on the same level as this character dialogue component. But on trigger enter 2D and on trigger exit 2D are not being called. Interesting. Why would that be? Oh, I'm dumb. Do we need a rigid body also? I'm thinking maybe I need a rigid body also to trigger. Do you need a rigid? I don't think you need a rigid body to get an on trigger enter call. Yeah, so one of the objects has to have a rigid body, which my player object does. It just needs to have the collider. Both objects must touch. At least one of the colliders must be a trigger collider, and at least one must be a physics body collider. Yep. Oh, but in 2D games, trigger events are only set if one of the colliders also... No, yeah, that's... I'm sorry, I thought it said both. Yeah, hold on. In fact, let me play it, because then I can have them both, like, right next to each other. Make this nice and big. Actually, we're going to need the other screen, too. So we'll make this one small. Let me move over there, because this is what we want to see. So these are the two different objects that I'm trying to have trigger collision. One is a sandbox player, which has a rigid body, and it's dynamic, and it has a capsule collider that is not a trigger, so it's a collider. And I have a save point over here that's actually set up the exact same way as this NPC character. So when I walk into its trigger, there's the text. You can see the text has appeared. So here's the save point. You can see where we are inside of its trigger collider, and so it's then triggering. If we leave, it does the exit. So trigger and untrigger. All right, so that's working. This NPC, let me get back over there. So we know the player's set up correctly, and we have another object in the scene that should be set up the same as this NPC. Now, the NPC also has a collider, box collider, that is set as is trigger. So when we go into it, it should be showing the text above it. Yeah, so it should be showing up when we walk into it. And for some reason, it's not. So the NPC character is just a character with that dialogue script and the trigger box collider. Oh, that's a good point. You know what? You just got it. So the problem is, I just figured it out from what you said. The problem is I duplicated the player object to create the NPC object. So the NPC object is actually on the player layer. And so they will never, because they're both players, they're not colliding with each other, because I have the player set to not collide with itself or some crap like that, I think. So yeah, you're 1000% right. That's the problem. Thank you, sir. Sandbox NPC. So you are I think we can just put it on default, actually. Let me double check what the save point is. I think it's also just on default. Yeah, it's on default also. Okay, so that should now do it. So if we start from the main menu and we play the game, we'll turn up the music again, and then we get ourselves over there. There we go. Yeah, now it's being called. Whoops. I appear to have walked away from him. But yeah. So now when I walk up, let me turn off the gizmos. So now when I walk up to him, the word talk appears. And if we press the E button, you can actually see that the dialogue window popped up, and it says the character's name, and it says their dialogue. Hi there. So yeah, all right, we got the dialogue working. Oh, but we can still control the character. But we are getting the sound effect as it's typing it out. We are getting the sound effect, and we do have some response buttons that we could pick. But I don't think. Yeah, oh, you know what? Oh wait, so what's going on here? So the response button is invoking its on selected event, which I don't really need all of that. So we're going to refactor that in a second. But then the dialogue view is invoking the response at the index. And the dialogue manager is then trying to close itself, or close the view. And gotcha, the voice is null. So, okay. So that's the problem. Let's, if voice is not equal to null, then stop it and set it to null. and that will actually fix the issue. And then we need to flesh out the UI of the dialogue a bit more, or the dialogue view. But it seems to now be working. So we can walk up to this character, we can interact with him, and as we press the button to advance the text, that is working. And we're getting the sound effect. In fact, let's I can't adjust these. Oh, I can. I just have to hit edit in play mode. All right, so let's turn down the ambience. Let's turn down the music. That way we can actually hear the sound effect. And let's turn up the sound effect like a lot. See, so we got the typing sound effect, and then if we choose one of the responses, it then closes the dialogue window, and then we could start the conversation over again. Now, the only bug that I see here is that we should actually not be able to control the character while in a conversation. The characters now, why is it playing a sound effect for the trigger? We don't have anything like that set up. That sounds cool. But so when we start a conversation, it's technically supposed to disable the character's input. But for some reason, we can still control the character. Oh, it's not even on trigger. It's just... It's anytime I change... It's anytime I press a direction left or right. Or up or down, too. Wow, that's weird. But yeah. Alright, so we basically have the dialogue system working, though. We just need to figure out why is the player still able to move, and that would then fix that weird bug with the sound effects playing as well. But the dialogue system itself, what we came to accomplish, is officially working. And then we can quit. Cool. I should probably reset these. And yeah, so let's see. So we just need to figure out why is the... So in the dialogue manager, when we show dialogue, we are telling the input system to enable the dialogue input. That should be disabling all other types of input and then just enabling the dialogue profile, which if we look at the input actions map, so we have 3 maps. One is for menus, one is for the game itself. This is what moves the character. And then one is for dialogue. Well, I guess we do... So something's going wrong with the player, where he's not listening to just the game's input. He's listening for, like, all input. But it's not a big deal. What we came to accomplish was dialogue. We now have a dialogue system that's working. It even has sound effects. It even types out the dialogue. It shows the character's name that you're talking to. We could easily add in the ability for it to show a character's image as well. We just need to stop the character from moving, the player from moving when we're in dialogue. Because the movement keys should actually control the UI at that point. So like if there's responses that you can choose from, the movement keys should not control the character itself. It should then control what response you're selecting. So slight bug, but we basically have 90% of it working there. That's pretty cool. So I guess let me take that off my checklist here. But I do want to figure out that bug. Okay. Actually, I don't need to figure it out right now, but I'll keep it on my mind that I do need to figure that out at some point. And now we technically have NPCs as well, so we can check that off. So the last real things we need to create are enemies that can hurt us and a combat system for the player so that we can attack those enemies and defend ourselves. And then maybe some pickup systems for like coins or something that you pick up after defeating an enemy, or maybe a key that goes to a door that you would walk into and you would then pick it up and it would add it to your inventory, stuff like that. So yeah, that's actually a good accomplishment for today. Let me get the music back up here in the background. So what do I want to work on next? We got our dialogue working. Let me look at the character class really quick. Yeah, so the character input is just getting input from the brain. I'd be willing to bet the problem is in the player brain. It is. So, in the player brain, we are creating our own input actions instead of using the input scriptable object. Because the input scriptable object also creates an input actions. The input actions is the generated C# class from the new Unity input. So because the player brain is creating its own, it's not actually listening for changes on this other one. So I guess let's fix that really quick. So that's the issue as to why the character is still moving when we're in dialogue. So let's give it a serialized field or the input scriptable object. Give it a tooltip, the input scriptable object. And then anything in here that's using the input actions or input action, we want to remove all of that and read it from the input scriptable object instead. Let me think here. See, I actually have all this done in another project. I should bring all that code in instead. That it would probably be a lot easier. Let's just see if we can get it to work here. for now. If not, I'm going to grab it from the other project. All right, so let's just delete those, as we do not want to have any reference to our own input actions map. We want it to completely be read through the input scriptable object. I think what we would actually do is we want to register for all those events. So on movement, I guess it's called on move. Is that the right one? No. So it's just called move. So now what confuses me is in my input scriptable object, when you implement one of their interfaces, it forces you to implement these methods, and these methods are generated with the word on at the prefix of them. So my action, my actual event, I usually use the word on as a prefix, and I can't do that in here because all those methods are named that. So it confuses me every time. But so basically we're going to do this. Input dot movement. Let's just we'll create events for all of these. It's fine. So input dot move equals create a method called move, and this is movement, and then we'll just take this and we're going to stick it there, and we can just pass in the movement variable. And then we just have to do the same for all the other different types of events here. I would say input so dot jump plus equals jump. Now the problem is, I think this jump it's not passing in the context. We don't know if it's being held down or not. It's not a super big deal, but let's just try to do this quickly, and then I'm actually going to grab the code from the other project that I already did this in. We'd have jump canceled, and this will just say input.jump down equals true. And this will just say input.jump down equals false. That's going to cause some bugs. That's okay. We're going to figure this out quickly, just so that we can see if it fixes the issue, and then I'll go grab all the other code. Let's actually move the on disable up here. Next we need run, dash, attack, and interact. So let's just create those really quick. Void run. And then we'll just copy, paste that, dash, attack, interact. Dash, attack, interact. And then we can copy that out a bit. So run, dash, attack, and interact. Let's call run, dash, attack, and interact. Awesome. All right. And then on disable, we're just going to unregister from all those. Clean up after ourselves like the good programmers we are. And then let's grab those different things. This is definitely not going to work, because if you press the run button once, it's going to set run to true forever. There is no run canceled. So I will have to fix it. I'm just not going to run for now. Dash input.attack equals true, and input.interact equals true. Now where is this called? Is in the think. We actually just want to return actually, we don't need to do anything at all. This can just be an empty method for now. But that's not how I have it set up in the other project. But that can be empty, and then we don't need to call this anymore. We're gonna just we're gonna comment it out for now, so that I remember which ones of these to use. And let's go see if that worked. So then we want to go to the player brain, and we want to fill in that input scriptable object. And in theory, we should still be able to move the character. And we can. Jumping's a little weird, though. I don't know if we're going to be able to jump up there to talk to that other character. So let's bring him down to us. Grab that guy, and we're going to put him down here. And then if we walk into him and interact, we're getting some weird ass behavior. Alright, I'm gonna have to grab... Oh, crap, I think Unity crashed, too. Okay, there we go. We're good, we're good. I'm gonna have to grab all the code from the other project to fix up the character and the character's input. Because I have already redone all of this to make this work in the way that it's supposed to. Let's see. I think I might take a break here, actually, for the day. I keep saying on all my previous streams that I'm going to come back in the afternoon and stream again and like play some games. And I really want to actually do that, because I keep saying I'm going to, and then I don't, because I fall asleep on the couch until 4 a.m. or some crap. So I think I'm going to take a break here, because we did actually accomplish the dialogue system. And that's a big accomplishment for today. And I'm going to go grab some quick lunch a little bit early, or I guess it's not really early for lunch anymore, but it's just earlier than I would normally get off. Grab some lunch. That way, after lunch, I can come back and stream again, and this time actually play some video games instead of coding. Because I want to make a consistent schedule that in the morning I do coding and development, and then in the afternoon to the evening, I'll then play some games that's a little bit more entertaining than me just sitting here looking at code and stuff. Yeah, exactly. We got a lot done today. The dialogue system is a huge accomplishment for today. It's one less thing off the checklist. So yeah, we'll switch it back to the just chatting scene here while I kind of save things up. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it there for now. And hopefully, because I am ending a little early, I'm going to go get some food and still then have the energy to jump back on afterwards. And play some games with you guys. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing yet. Maybe my daughter wants to jump in and play some games with me too. So I'll either be playing probably Dark Souls by myself, or might be playing Minecraft or Fortnite with my daughter if she's up for it. But yeah, I guess on that note, thank you guys for hanging out. I know that some of this is kind of a boring process, but each day we are making major accomplishments. We are making progress, and we are that much closer now to having a vertical slice demo for a Metroidvania game that will be very easy to expand upon and build out the rest of the game after this. So this is all great stuff. This is awesome. We're getting very, very close to our goal of a vertical slice demo that we could even throw online and maybe get some fundraising for or something like that. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw today, make sure to hit that follow button. And I'm going to go grab some lunch. I will be back in 30 minutes to an hour or so. And then we'll jump into some gaming. We'll do something a little more entertaining than just staring at code. So thank you guys again. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you later.